Hey guys, what's up? This is Ari. Each week on the show I try to bring you tips and tricks for learning language. So whether you're an experienced language learner or whether you're just new to the process of language learning, I try to make that process as efficient as possible for you and as effective as possible. A few weeks ago I did an interview with this guy Jared who speaks 30 some odd languages. Really super awesome interview. Got a lot of really favorable response. A lot of people asked for something similar. So interviews with more polyglots, more people who know languages really well and are really good at them. So today, super happy to bring you this interview with my friend Kevin, who speaks at last count, 100 some languages. And so, Kevin, 你可以给我们展现一下你的能力吗？
好，我当然会讲中文，因为我是在上海住了很多年。Я начал учиться русский язык. Я 2 года здесь в Нью-Йорке учился русский, потом в России жил 2 месяца. Такой же были сербский и русский были слышны. Después de aprender serbio, yo comencé a aprender de nuevo muchos otros idiomas que yo commencé à apprendre le français aussi de nouveau parce que c'était une des premières langues étrangères que j'ai appris quand j'habitais en Chine parce que tous les autres étudiants avaient besoin d'apprendre l'anglais, mais porque eu nasci aqui, eu não tinha que aprender inglês, porque eu já podia falar inglês, então eu comecei a aprender muitos outros idiomas. 저도 일본어勉強しているけど、とても上手に話せると言えないと思います。Ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. Ich habe auch, als ich in Shanghai wohnte, habe ich begonnen, ein bisschen auch Deutsch zu lernen. Als ich gelernt habe, habe ich auch ein bisschen Nederlands gelernt. Maar mijn Nederlands is niet goed, want ik heb ook een beetje Afrikaans studeerd. En dan, mijn Nederlands is wie een combinatie van Afrikaans en Nederlands en een beetje Engels ook. Where do I go from there? Mogę mówić trochę po polsku, dlatego że podróżowałem się trochę w Polsce, w Krakowie i jako język rosyjski, jako język serbski. Egy kicsit magyarul is beszélek, de nem nagyon jól. Budapesten utaztam, én biraz türkçe de konuşabilirim. Çünkü bir yıl devamında ben Özbekçe hem biraz öğrendim. Rusça öğrenimden sonra bir yıl Özbekçe ve Şura ve İttifakı'nın başka dillerden biraz öğrenmekçiydim. Ve بعد از آنکه من زبان ازبکی در دانشگاه یاد گرفتم من بسیار کلمه های فارسی هم از زبان ازبکی یاد گرفتم و به این دلیل برای من یاد گرفتن از زبان فارسی برای من هم بسیار دشوار نبود و فارسی सीखने के बाद मेरे लिए तो हिंदी और उर्दू सीखना भी इतना मुश्किल नहीं था क्योंकि हिंदी में भी बहुत सारे फारसी शब्द है और अरबी शब्द भी है और क्योंकि मेरी कंपनी में मैं आईटी में काम कर रहा हूँ इसलिए मेरे बहुत सारे इंडियन स्पीकिंग कोवर्कर्स है और मैं 2-3 साल पहले मुंबई में सफ़र किया और मुंबई और गोवा और दिल्ली में भी सड़क में लोगों के साथ हिंदी में बातचीत कर सकता. أنا ممكن أحكي شوية عربية ولكن عربيتي مش كتير منيح لأنه عربية هذا لغة مشكلة في عنده كتير لهجات في شامية مصرية مغربية وأنا درست شوية شامية لأنه في عندي أكثر أصدقاء من لبنان وسوريا. אני גם למדתי קצת עברית, כי יש לעברית דקדוק הרבה דומה לדקדוק, I think is grammar, של השפה הערבית. אני התחלתי ללמוד עברית לפני 3 שנים, belajar bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Melayu, satu bahasa satu ini, tetapi belum berbahasa Indonesia dengan baik sekali. Ninaweza pia kusema Kiswahili kidogo tu. Nilianza kusema lugha ya Kiswahili kabla ya miaka 2. Lakini créole haïtien tout, moi j'ai voyagé pour 2 semaines en Haïti l'année passée parce que moi connais la langue française. Pour moi parler en créole c'était pas trop difficile pour moi. Ma non penso che posso dire che realmente parlo italiano perché nunca, that's Spanish, nunca l'ho imparato formalmente. Ed è molto flas pak ship por nuk shumir. Kam gjuha shqipe është një gjuhë shumë e interesueshme, por unë nuk e flas shumë mirë. Puțin românește, dar nu foarte bine. Nu cred că vorbesc românește.
So, Kevin, having studied and with the ability to speak in all of these languages, what do you think is the biggest misconception about language learning that you've encountered from people who are just starting out?
Well, I guess the easy answer would be that it's hard and actually everyone can learn a language, so I won't go with that. I actually think another thing that happens a lot is that people will be like, oh, you learned Russian, that must be so hard because they have a different alphabet. Or, oh, you learned Arabic, and that must be so hard because they write right to left. And it's just like, that, no, that alphabets,
I mean, the easiest part.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about Chinese, like.
Right, yes, which is not an alphabet. Right. It's like a whole, or Japanese, and that's about it. Those are the two that, I'm still very glad that I mostly got Chinese for free and then don't have to actually go through that pain.
So key.
But it's like, whether it's, I don't know, Arabic or like Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, all have their own scripts, but that's just like a one-time thing. Like, it's like, I guess thinking in like, I'm a computer scientist, so I guess I would think in like in computational terms, like a constant, it's like a big O of 1. It's like you do it once, you got it forever. Whereas
such a good metaphor.
Whereas the rest of the stuff you have to like keep working on constantly. It's like the alphabet, I mean, I would say that's one thing that I encounter more than anything. That's just like, that is not actually how languages work, really.
A lot of people on the show whose first time it is learning a language, or are just approaching Mandarin or Russian, Japanese, whatever, for the first time, how do you, having had experience with studying so many languages, what's the first thing that you do when you try to tackle a brand new language you've never seen before?
Well, I do tend to like end up like planning out how I'm gonna do a language for like a week or so before I actually really get into learning it. Half the time it really just depends on like how it relates to languages you already know. Like when I was learning Portuguese after knowing Spanish, it was like a very different approach to like, I don't know, Swahili, which basically was completely new. It's full of Arabic words though, so that did help. But it's like, it very much depends on like how it, like learning Hindi after Farsi was not as hard because it was full of Farsi words. But generally, I mean, I guess one thing that I tend to do that's maybe not all that common, but since like I majored in linguistics in college, is sometimes I'll just not get a normal textbook. I'll get like a descriptive grammar of the language and just like use that as a starting point. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, sometimes, depending on the language, sometimes it feels like it helps to just get the whole big picture of like how the entire grammatical structure fits together, and then you can fill in words later on. But it sort of depends on, because sometimes with some languages that I haven't seen before, it's like you do a textbook and every lesson you learn some new grammatical thing, and you're like, okay, now I know this, but like you don't know how much more there is left. Sometimes I feel like that sort of is frustrating sometimes, the way textbooks are written. So that's the thing I sometimes do.
It's really interesting you start with a descriptive grammar of a language.
Mm-hmm.
I've only very rarely heard of people doing that. I think it definitely makes sense in theory, but you know, this is like it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it definitely also depends on like the language. The two I've done that most successfully with were Portuguese and I guess more recently Punjabi, because I knew languages that were very similar to them beforehand, respectively Spanish and Hindi. So it's like it helped because I could read these grammar books are full of example sentences, and because like half the words I already could recognize already, it was like I could just like sort of follow along, and you would be like learning basic word vocabulary just from that almost. So that helped. With something more different, I guess it would be a bigger challenge. I mean, I'm currently trying to figure out how I'm going to tackle Thai, and I'm still not sure what my course of action is going to be exactly. Although I'm realizing that Thai is so full of Sanskrit words that like knowing Hindi is actually going to help in sort of like a weird way there. But yeah, it's probably going to be, I'm just going to use a regular textbook probably and then see how that goes.
Awesome. So Kevin, how do you you know, you've got the textbook, you're reading the grammar, you're figuring out from a high level theoretical standpoint how the language actually works. What's your process then for actually getting into like the meat and potatoes of building up your skills to fluency?
I mean, ideally, I would find people in New York City to talk to. That's always like the best way to go. Like when I was like getting my French and Spanish back up to speed, that was like basically just go to Polyglot Bar and do that. With some others, it's a bit trickier. It depends on the language, like how much like media is out there in that language that's readily available. Like with Japanese, there's tons of anime. With Hindi, there's like so much Bollywood movies to watch. And for both of those, like once I got to the point where like I knew how the grammar worked and had like basic vocabulary, I would just like watch a whole bunch of anime or Bollywood and hit pause with English subtitles also, just because the thing was like figuring out how to parse what I was hearing while also just having the English as a reference. And then sometimes I would like figure out, like guess, okay, I guess this word means that, but let me just pause and look up in a dictionary and confirm that that's the case. Especially with Japanese, a lot of the times, well with Japanese, half the time I would be like, okay, I think that's how it translates. I can probably even guess the Chinese characters for it based on like how it sounds, and just let me confirm that. Or with Hindi, oftentimes it would just be like, oh, I know that from Farsi, let me just check that it means the same thing in Hindi, because sometimes it doesn't.
So one thing a lot of people have with, you know, I think a lot of people get the advice, you know, you just have to listen to a lot of native level material. I think one issue a lot of people have with that is, you know, what do you do with anime when you're just starting Japanese, for example, and you can't, you can't understand what's being said, or the sentences are at too advanced a level for you. How do you kind of deal with that?
I mean, I guess for that specific example, I didn't get started with anime really for quite some time. I'd been studying Japanese for a while. I realize a lot of people try to learn Japanese because they want to watch the anime, but that really wasn't my situation at all. So it was sort of like I had like gone through a whole bunch of different Japanese textbooks and like read some. I mean, there's a lot of random stuff out there for Japanese. There was like a grammatical dictionary that was just like different grammatical aspects of Japanese, but in like alphabetical order. And once I was like on a flight from here to Tokyo, and I just like tried to get through as much of it as I could. But yeah, it's sort of, you need to get to like a certain level, I guess, at first. But even before that, I don't know. It's not like it's going to help you actually understand, but just like listening to it passively, like just to even get a sense of like how like the rhythm of the language, or like you'll probably recognize a few words here and there and like get a sense of how things fit together. Probably, I mean, I do that a lot with like when I was trying to learn, what was it? Yeah, Swahili, for example. I would just go on, the Deutsche Welle has like a daily half-hour or 1 hour long radio show that's just in Swahili, so I just like listen to it, like even before I could fully understand it, just to get a sense of how people talked. And similarly with like, yeah, like one of the really good resources for listening for a lot of more obscure languages in particular is like BBC World Service or Deutsche Welle, Radio France Internationale, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, I just recently started listening to Uyghur on Radio Free Asia, and that was actually very interesting because like I know some Turkish and Uzbek, so it was like, oh shit, I actually understand quite a bit. So it's like
Awesome.
even when you're starting out, just like it helps like for immersion in that way.
Cool. So to summarize, it sounds like you really like textbooks. You like listening to a lot of audio early on, and then when you're ready, going into native level materials, and then of course speaking with people at bars and meetups.
Or ideally travel to the place.
Travel, right?
Yeah,
right,
if possible.
Yeah.
Another thing that really helped was once I started organizing this the polyglot bar meetup about 3 years ago here in New York. Some other people had started it, but then the old organizers had to leave the city for various reasons, so I volunteered to keep it going, and that was extremely helpful, especially like for some languages that I had been like self-conscious about, like French, for example. Like I'd studied for 10 years already, but barely spoken at all. But it helped, like actually just speaking to people like in a casual situation, also with alcohol, that helped a bit.
Right.
Starting out, I suppose. Yeah. And then so then I when I traveled to France afterwards, like I was actually able to communicate. Whereas like when I was a kid, we went to France once and it was a disaster. Like I had been studying French, but I couldn't actually speak to anyone. If you really want to learn languages and like get some practice speaking it, and you're in New York City, you should definitely check out Mondolingo. Actually, even if you're not in New York, if you're in London or Melbourne or Lima or Cologne or Paris, they have branches there. Yeah. They have one in Thailand too, I forget where exactly, but yeah, they're all over the place. So like definitely check them out. They're very nice. They always get like dozens of people, almost 100 depending on the location. Yeah, and it's a great place to meet people who speak various languages.
You just spoke 20 some odd languages for us. Do you have any strategy for maintaining the languages that you've studied? Because I think there's always this eternal, and I talked with Jared a little bit about this. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, definitely go back and check it out because there's also a lot of really useful tips there. But one thing I spoke with Jared about was just like your memory is obviously this eternal. I mean, not eternal thing that just your memories are just going to evaporate unless you actively reinforce them. So how do you deal with that kind of ever-evaporating pool of languages maintenance rod?
Yeah, I mean that's always the challenge. It's like it's fun to learn something new, but then maintenance becomes kind of a chore oftentimes. I guess I tend to do the same thing like I was saying with like radio and just like especially like when I'm at the office, I just like I'll be working and have like various different languages lined up ready to just listen to one after the other while I'm in the office, like something in Spanish or French or whatever.
And do you actively are you actively paying attention to those, or are you just kind of just letting it sort of wash over the audio?
Not always actively paying attention. And again, this always depends heavily on like the availability of stuff. Like with Spanish, it's like half the time when I want to watch a soccer game on the weekend, like it's not on NBC, it's on Telemundo. Oh. It's like, well, okay,
there we go. Perfect.
And then I just do that.
Your interests coincide.
Yeah, and I guess music is always helpful as well. Like,
do you find music to be helpful? I think for me, I really like listening to Chinese music, but it unless I'm memorizing the lyrics, which I do like doing. I suppose it really depends on the language because with some languages it's hard to understand what people are actually singing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I actually don't listen to that much Chinese music, so... But yeah, I imagine with Chinese, with the tones, it's like the way it's spoken and the way it sounds might be really different. But like with Spanish, it's definitely super useful. I mean, it depends on, like... I listen to a lot more like Serbian music than Russian.
Serbian music?
Yeah, it just like I feel like it's just better. I don't know. It's like
there you have.
It's like it's interesting. It's interesting because it has a lot of like that Turkish Middle Eastern influence. So it's not just like there's less of it that's just like generic pop. It's like even like the generic shit is like weirdly Middle Eastern styled also. So that's interesting. It really. For most languages, I would say it probably helps, yeah.
Well, sweet. Thank you so much, Kevin. Definitely, guys, stick around for next week. you know, and if you like this kind of content, definitely please subscribe for more interesting language learning tips and tricks. And yeah, leave a note in the comments about what you most appreciated about this interview, things you'd like me to focus on, guests you'd like me to interview, all that sort of stuff. And see you guys next week. Bye. Peace out.